So for today's video, I thought I'd start off by talking about the teams in the league. And specifically, I'll try to draw comparisons with major league teams. So to show that I'm a fan, I'm going to start with my favorite team, the Doosan Bears, or in Korean, Doosan Bears. And I've noticed that some people have compared Doosan with the Yankees because of their success. But I think that's a little misleading because Doosan's really spent a lot of money on the free agent market. In fact, the company behind the team is going through a rough patch right now, and so there's even word that the team might have to be sold at some point. So from that perspective, to compare them with the Yankees, I think just doesn't make that much sense. Instead, my comparison would be the St. Louis Cardinals. Thinking about how, as a small market team, they've managed to be consistent and successful, mainly through the front office and smart management. The Bears' rivals are the LG Twins. In Korean, LG Twins. I would say that they're comparable to the Dodgers because they have been successful in the past, and in particular in the 1990s, they grew a huge fan base because of their uniforms, because of pinstripes, but also because a lot of their players were very handsome and good looking. And you can kind of compare that to the Hollywood kind of feel to the Dodgers as well. Just to throw a little shade, much like the Dodgers, the LG Twins have not won anything in the past 20 years, or even gotten close to winning, so there's that as well. Then you have the Kia Tigers, or in Korean, Kia Taegeoju. My comparison for them would be the Yankees, because they have won the most pennants in the most Korean series, which is our World Series. The fact that they haven't been as successful in recent years, although they're actually getting much better, I think it also makes a great comparison as well. Then you have the Samsung Lions, or in Korean, Samsung Lionsju. For me, they would be the Boston Red Sox, for a couple of reasons. First, despite being one of the storied franchises in Korea, they hadn't been able to win the pennant for a very long time. And it was only in 2002 that they won their first Korean series. And after that, they had a pretty good stretch where they had a lot of success. The other reason that I like this comparison is that it kind of parallels the rivalry between the Yankees and the Red Sox. Kia and Samsung also play for cities that have traditionally hated each other, and so that's why I like that comparison. In the south of the country, you have the Lotte Giants, or in Korean, Lotte Giants. You might have seen that Busan, the city where Lotte plays, has an amazing fan base, and so from that perspective, I would say perhaps the Phillies would make some sense. And also it might be worth noting that both Lotte and the Phillies have made flashy acquisitions in the past few years that haven't necessarily worked out that well. Then you have the NC Dinos, or in Korean, NC Dinos. They're a relatively new team that's actually had quite a bit of success. And so from that perspective, I would say maybe the Diamondbacks might make a good comparison. The latest addition to the league is the KT Wiz, or KT Wizu in Korean. In contrast to the Dinos, the Wiz have not played that well, but not for lack of trying. I personally think this might be their breakout year where they make the playoffs for the first time. So if you kind of like that story, think of the Tampa Bay Devil Rays at their height, or maybe even the Florida Marlins when they were actually good. If you like a newcomer story, then KT is your team. On the other end of that spectrum may lie the SK Wyverns, or SK Waibonju in Korean. Their reputation has died down a little, but a lot of Koreans remember them. Their teams in the mid-2000s that had a win-at-all-cost mentality. That involved a lot of beanballs, a lot of pitcher changes, really annoyed other teams, but the fans appreciated. So maybe think of them as the Houston Astros without the explicit cheating. And lastly, you have the Hanwha Eagles. Hanwha Eagles. And you wouldn't have a league without your lovable losers, which they are. I tend to agree that they probably are the Chicago Cubs of the Korean League. The thing that's kind of ironic about Hanwha is that they're a team that has a lot of legends that were really not able to break through that often. So if you move away from baseball a little, you can think of the Utah Jazz when you had Karl Malone and John Stockton, or in football or soccer, you can think of Liverpool and their storied franchise not being able to win the Premier League. Lastly, you have the Kium Heroes. They're actually fascinating because they're experimental in a lot of ways. Remember how all of the Korean teams are backed by corporate sponsorships? Kium certainly has one, Kium, but it's just for their naming rights, and that's up for negotiations, whereas other companies actually own their own teams. That also means that they tend to be more dependent on their farm system, and so the Oakland A's during the Billy Beane Moneyball era kind of comes to mind, and you see a lot of young players developing really well within their system. So there you have it. That's my rundown of the 10 Korean teams. I don't know how accurate they are. I would love to hear other people's thoughts on my comparisons, kind of compare notes. But they're really my impressions as a fan of both baseball in the US and in Korea. I hope you enjoyed this video, and perhaps it'll lead to other ones in the future as well.